and we are live here on episode 3 of Stick to the Skrip. Have a brand new guest on, my great friend John Forsberg here on the show today, ready to talk about some different topics. But before we get into anything, John, I showed you the logo. Do you remember what you said about the logo on Snapchat when you first seen it? Do you remember?
Uh, the stick to the script.
Yeah.
Well, I said I liked it, but it's not what most women do.
Yeah, that is true. It was a nice dig, but it was well thought out there. But
Well, excluding your mother's stuck to the script. So
she did, and she
yeah,
even asked if I wanted to get dinner tonight. Super nice. Gianna's on the fence a little bit. Everybody else is super hit or miss, mostly miss, but
all right.
it is what it is. But John and I known each other for a while. We'll probably touch base on how that came together and everything. Different talking points, but John, I want to start off because you and I will text each other in the morning sometimes and give each other some shit. Like, are you up? It's like the one time where I'm texting somebody, "Are you up?" and it's not a bad thing at the end of the day. But we both get after it in different ways, working out. I know that's important to you. It's important to me. I think about what motivates me. I think about being like, former college athlete. I think about taking some gym selfies for attention. I'm trying to catch up to Martin, my neighbor, who is like a beast of a guy. I think I'm getting close, but also like super far away. I think about like Mila, just weird examples in my head of things that'll happen in the future and having to, be strong and fit for those situations. So just things motivate me, very different things. Well, what motivates you to continue to work out, to hit the road and the cold and put in those workouts?
Yeah, probably some of the same things. My family and I played water polo in college, so I was in really good shape when I got out of college. I always thought, and I've always told people that whatever shape you're in when you get out of college is the shape you want to try to stay in your whole life. So I continue to swim and continue to run, do those things in the morning like you do, get your day started correctly. Now I have, much like you, I have goals that I want to meet every day, whether it's how many miles I run, how many steps I get. When I was swimming up until COVID, it was laps, how many laps I wanted to get. So yeah, many of the same things you have on your mind when you're exercising, your children, your job, your life, where you're at. And let me tell you, I mean, our age are a little different, and it gets tougher. It gets tougher as you get in your 40s and now turn 50. It's a little tougher. It's not tougher to get up.
Yeah.
It's not tougher to do it. It's just tougher to see the results. So you're doing the right thing. I don't think you're going to catch Martin, but you're heading in the right direction.
I think I need like the Michael Jordan's secret juice or something to catch Martin. I'll have to figure out what that is exactly. But I even kind of feel it now at 30, just not feeling the same as like 20, 22, waking up sometimes kind of feeling groggy, but you just got to keep getting after it, I guess. And I know you're out there even when it's cold, right?
Yeah, out this morning in the snow doing my shout out as you hear every morning. I like to get after it. I like to do that, and again, it kind of reflects on my job. In sales, I've always said people can do sales calls on hot, sunny, 80-degree days, but it takes a special person to go out in the snow when it's -10 and hit it there. So it's kind of the same with exercise. It's easy for people to say they're not going to the gym because whatever, the roads, slick, fog, raining. I mean, there's a million excuses, and
Always.
and your gym loves that because that's free money.
Absolutely. And you and I have known each other obviously for a long time. John lives a couple houses down from my parents. We refer to it as just 2303, their address. And I lived there, obviously growing up, but then after college for a little bit. And after my undergrad, I actually worked for John at this company, Austin Freight. He had an office downtown Plainfield, and it was the first time I was making like okay money coming out of school, and John was the boss of the office there. So John, we got to bring up the toilet story because it's uncharacteristic of me. It's not very like things I typically do. I usually like overtell the truth and everything. Can't hide anything. And this one was kind of funny working in your office.
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to the way that we were brought up. You were brought up, and I was brought up by parents who want you to not only succeed, but not screw around at your job. So
Yes.
don't go to work and screw around and get fired or do stupid things. And you were nervous. You were nervous at the start, like anyone is. Any person starts a new job, very nervous. They don't know a lot about what they're doing, especially just coming out of school. And, we had a little 3-man office there. We all worked together, no cubicles, nothing like that. We were all out in each other's business, and 3 guys in 1 bathroom. There's something's got to give.
Not at the same time, though.
Not at the same time.
No, that's at McBride. That's at McBride's only, I think.
Yeah. And and about the story, again, there was only 3 of us, and I went to use the restroom, and the toilet was broke, and I confronted you about if you broke the toilet, and I think you were just a little nervous because you did break the toilet, but you just kind of said, "Oh no, that couldn't have been me. I didn't break the toilet." So, and then it might have been years later that you kind of finally fessed up that you broke the toilet.
And it was funny because there are some other things at the office, and it's not a knock on that guy at all or anything like that. It's far in the past, so it doesn't matter anymore. John actually doesn't work for that specific company or have that office anymore. He has a different job, same industry now. But it was funny because over time, I would send him these pictures, and it had to do with our time working at Austin Freight. And I think it started one time where you like push my button on something, or you were messing with me about something. So I sent you the first picture, and what I sent him was a picture of that 3rd guy in the office sleeping, and I drew like a cloud over him, raining on him, like on Snapchat or something like that. And John saw it the first time, wondering like, what is that? Like, what are you sending me? Only for him to realize that literally every day there was a guy in the office who would fall asleep, and I would take pictures of him every single day in this office once John left. And then over time, I would just randomly send it to him. So I think at first it might have pissed you off a little bit because you still had that office when I left, and that the guy was still there. But I do recall the home site of this company saying something along the lines, and you know it better than me, that maybe he had something wrong with him or a condition or something.
Yeah, I brought it up after he left. He ended up leaving sometime after you did, maybe less than a year after you did. And he was even older than me, so I'm old, and he was even older. HR people that have an HR mind, or owners nowadays, they think of things differently. So they gave him the benefit of the doubt that he may have had like a sleep disorder or something. But I really think, and generally he would, his daughter went a long way away to school, almost down touching the ocean, so we won't have to, name anything like that, but a long way, down to Alabama. But anyway, and he would drive that all night and come straight into work. So, I guess as soon as I left to go out on sales calls, or, to go to the gym or whatever I was doing, he would decide to take a nap. And, it was a learning experience for you, I think,
I think, yeah, in a way, but also I had a little fun with it, because not only did I take some pictures, but I would take some videos of me just like acting shocked and like concerned, and then just like video him sleeping at his desk and things like that, and then send it to John. And we worked there, or I worked there, not a super long time, but got okay at the job. I think you kind of said at first I was real nervous, and I almost kind of shit in my pants at first, because I would be doing these, working with these loads of truck deliveries and this paperwork, and was very concerned about doing it right. And it's not a job where you can make a ton of mistakes at the end of the day, and you still work in that industry.
Yep. And as you could see, I mean, you picked it up real easy. 2 weeks. Logistics is something you either get or you don't. If you don't understand it, it's hard to like, okay, maybe in a year or so I'll catch up. You caught on it in 2 weeks and you figured out, hey, this is very important. Communication is very important. Somebody always has to know what's going on, and that's true in any job. And that's what I've always taught people. Communication, you can't over communicate something. You did a very good job communicating, and and it was great to work with you, for the time we did. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think the big takeaway I got from that job is just over communicating things, and that's something you kind of pushed all the time. And I think that's important when it comes to a lot of jobs now, is just getting everybody on the same page with whatever's going on to a high extent, and over communicating solves issues down the road, because you can never say something wasn't detailed and this and that. So that's something I really took away from the job. But again, worked with John, lived down the street. I do remember back then too, back at 2303, the fish fry Fridays. It's a lot of F's right there. And that was like a big time during the Lent season for not just you, not just me, Franky, and the rest of the Skrip family crew. And basically what would happen would be, I think it even started when we were working together, is that we meet at 2303. A lot of times we would get these bomber beers, these tall beers. I don't really think we do that as much anymore, but get those beers. You, me, and Franky's my dad, would sit in the living room, pound a bunch of beers, and then head to the fish fry and just eat our ass off. And that was a tradition for a while.
Yeah, it was, and I think there would be a couple times we'd have families, a couple other families, neighbors. We had, I think, one time 14 or 15 people that went, and like you said, we would try a different restaurant or Legion or Knights of Columbus or somebody that was having it, or a church or someplace that was having it. Went on for several years, but one year I think that you're talking about it, we never missed. We hit those, and we hit them hard, and boy, we had some good times.
Definitely, but I think there was a few times that some of us got sick, and a lot of times we would, I think, blame like bad fish or something. But in reality, I think some of us might have been just like hammered and then just like eating way too much fish all at the same time. So I don't think people's stomachs can necessarily handle all of that at once,
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of times it's cod. It's kind of greasy. They're throwing it out to you as fast as they can because they're overwhelmed, and you're putting down the drinks, a little pregame. Maybe I know a couple times we maybe had a little shot or two, and then all that greasy food didn't help, and created some very interesting stories, to say the least.
I agree. I actually would blow off my friends at times to do that, and I never would be able to go out afterwards because you're drinking for a while, you're eating tons of fish, and you have like no motivation to like go to a bar or something afterwards. But we would hit a bunch of different restaurants. We found some that were good, some that were not so great. I know you specifically have a history of banning some places, and I mean, me personally, a place that's kind of banned right now to me is maybe I won't say the name of the place, but it's a certain roadhouse, just because of a recent experience I had there with not being able to play slots because of the manager reserving a slot machine that I liked for the entire time that we were at this specific place. But when it comes to banning places, I know we went to all these fish fries and things like that. Talk to me about that. Is it usually due to poor service? Is it due to the food being bad experience in general? How's that work for you? Because I know that's
this for me. I would say 2008 Austin Freight.
A little bit ago.
Bringing that up. I was at a national chain that makes cold cut sandwiches, probably the largest one out there. Like you said, I don't have to name its name. I happened to go into its store, and it was like something off Seinfeld. I got yelled at by the guy, and I ordered a sandwich because they had just had a new kind of meat they were introducing. I had ordered the sandwich, and he basically said, "No meat for you, no meat for you." And I was like, "What?" The guy's yelling at me, so I just said, "Well, I'm going to leave." Well, I went back to the office. I was a little upset, so I went on the internet, and I sent under the website page, contact me, wrote my story. Lo and behold, they checked it out on the video of their store manager. Lady calls me. She apologized. She says she owns 12 of these franchises in our area here. And long story short, she sent me a nice gift card. Said, well, okay. So far, she's made this right. Didn't need a gift card. Actually, I appreciate the apology. Sent me out a gift card. Lo and behold, I go back to the same place. Same exact thing.
Oof.
Same exact thing. So, a girl that was working there at the time, I said, I'm never going back there. And 2008, what are we in, 2023 now? I've never, ever been back to one of those chains ever again. I gave her the gift card, never going back. So that kind of set my standard. But I would say jump forward to the present. And there was a situation, we were at a fish fry. I set up the reservation, 14 of us here from the 2303 neighborhood. And I always like to buy everybody a round of drinks when we go in, just to set the tone, you know. So buy a round of drinks, then everybody orders their fish on their own. Fish fry.
Yep.
I don't know what the world's coming to, but it's going in a direction that's not the same as when I was your age. We get the bill, and every one of us was charged for every single tartar sauce that we used at a fish fry. Well, to me, if you order French fries and you want ketchup, they don't charge you for the ketchup.
Per squirt.
Per squirt. You order mustard for your burger, no per squirt. So I went up to the manager. I said, hey, I have a $200 liquor bill here. I brought 14 people in here tonight, and you have the nerve to charge me 50 cents for a little container of 28 things of tartar sauce. That's unacceptable. Well, she took it off the bill, but those type of things are just that's just something that's in my mind going to get you banned.
Yeah.
You know, and it comes down to service. Like, you know, I'm going to give you a good tip for good service, but if you're going to try to like pull the wool over my eyes and charge me for things, I thought about it today. I took Jack to breakfast here at a nice place in Shorewood, a happy place, good place. And I said, you know, I believe that we're going to see a day where they start charging you. They're going to be nice, and they'll say, hey, just so you know, water is now a quarter, because it's like a service charge. Because I always order water now.
Yeah.
Because drinks are the most expensive part of your meal if you think about it.
Yep.
You know. So back to the getting banned. You know, it doesn't take much anymore to get banned because service is so poor. But I'll say adversely, I don't want to ban any place. I want good service. You and I went out recently before New Year's. On New Year's Eve, we went out. You know, for a little talk and whatever. We had good service. We didn't have great service. We had good service. I want good service. I just don't want poor service. I don't want to be neglected, and I don't want whatever we order to be bad or wrong. And if I get good service, I'll leave you a very nice tip because, hey, that's your job. I realize we all have to make a living. I don't want to ban you for something like that. But when you do foolish things and the service is horrible, you're going to get banned because there's many other places, and I just can't see giving our money to places that have poor service.
Exactly, especially if you're going to bring a party of even like 7 to 10 people. You know, all it takes is one time for that party attendant to have a bad experience, say, we're not coming, then each of those 10 people branch off and tell 2 other people and do the math there as it just kind of, you know, continues to spiral out with that. That that one place that we went to. It's funny because that place completely, I was just there like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago with Mila, and they completely renovated the place. They have a more expensive menu, and it was super empty on like a Friday or something like that. So even though it was a while ago, even though they renovated, they changed the menu, sometimes over time, if that word of mouth is poor, it's hard to recover from that. And I'm not saying that they're doing poorly this specific place or not, but it does impact it. And speaking of us going to, we got to drink a couple drinks on New Year's Eve, I think the plan was to pregame a little bit for Anthony's party. We got a bucket. She came by, said, "Do you want another one?" We kind of looked at each other, did get another one. I'm happy you didn't take a picture though that day, because you were telling my mom, I think, or Gianna, that I was stalling the process because I was talking to an older woman, and you said I'm going to take a picture of the waitress and send it to her. And it probably wasn't the best idea. You didn't do it. That probably saved us some trouble there.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I don't think that I actually say older woman, because there's not many of them that are older than me now. But I'd probably tell her. Tell her what age they are, and she says that's too old for Nick. So
of course, yeah, that's been like the standing joke and way to get to my mom since I've been like 21 years old. But mention a lot of 2303. Mention sometimes there. I got to bring up Franky. Franky's probably going to come up on the podcast many times. I think, and I've joked around and said this before. I've like grown up thinking that some of my friends even liked Franky, again, my dad, more than they've liked me. And I know you and him have had a long relationship, and you guys see each other pretty often. There's 1,000 of them that can probably come to mind. What's a good Franky story? Is there one that you can spit off the top of your head? Because there's going to be a lot on this show, and I know you have at least one or two, maybe 50. I'm not sure.
I'll tell my standard one, which is kind of middle of the road. It has to do with fish fry.
Yeah.
And we were telling this on Christmas Eve at your house when Uncle Ron was over.
Yeah.
We were telling this story. A fish fry. Usually, if you think about when Lent is, it's also college basketball season. So we would generally go back 2303, watch Duke play, watch a good ball game on a Friday night after a fish fry. So we were coming from one of our various places here that I don't even think's open anymore. I think it's whatever Backroads is now, whatever that was then. Had good.
What was it? Katie O'Connor's.
Might have been.
Something like that. Yeah.
And for some reason, Frank and I were doing shots of whiskey before the fish came, and we had pregame. They were serving cod because it's fast. They deep fry it. They're trying to fill you up with the French fries, coleslaw, whatever. And we had a big group. I don't know what the situation was. My kids were pretty young then. So they weren't going to go, over to 2303 afterwards. And Wendy was probably tired. That's my wife. And Franky had said, "Are you coming by?" I said, "Absolutely." We left the establishment at the exact same time. Your mother was driving, Franky, Gianna. They were right behind us. Anthony, I believe, too. And I come home. I live 3 houses down, which is maybe like 1 block or less.
It's a short car ride too, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, very short car. And picked up a bag of beers, walked back to 2303, sat down outside in the snow, in the cold. Nobody comes. Your dog Rocky was even. I was knocking on the door. Rocky was howling. Nobody's there. Okay, well, Frank doesn't text. You can't text Frank. You get a response 2 days later. So I'm waiting. All of a sudden, the white SUV your mom was driving comes rolling down the road. I'm still waiting there. I'm drinking a beer, just sitting on the stoop, having a good old time by myself in the cold. I said, "Gina, where have you been?" She says, "Ask your asshole friend where we've been."
Cool.
Said, "Oh, okay. What happened?" Well, apparently the cod caught up to Franky quick on the way home, and it was snowing out pretty good. There was a couple inches already on the ground. And he had to go take a shit pretty bad. So she had to pull over, and he ran between 2 houses and just let it go. So I was like kind of stunned, but not super surprised. I was just kind of stunned and laughing. And I said, "Franky, how did you wipe?" And he said, "I used my underwear." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "Okay, are we going to have a few beers?" "No." I said, I got a stomach ache. I'm going in. And that was how the night ended. Kind of short story, but
it's funny
I
too,
guess that's
because
kind of common for Franky.
I just was gonna say that too, because it's funny, because if that story happened to you or I, it would have been most likely a one-time thing ever that you know, maybe you wouldn't tell somebody, but somebody would tell about you, and it would be that, like, that one time that you had to go so bad. For Franky, on the other hand, that's something that's been common over time. I think I've heard stories about alleyways and and like abandoned places and stuff, and just being in the car sometimes with him on a trips, and seeing him in the back with his hand on his forehead, kind of sweating, saying he's got to go. His stomach has not been his strongest asset over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so with Franky, it hasn't always just been you hanging out with Franky. Obviously, the three of us had a period of time, again, where I was blowing off my friends to hang out with you guys, and sit in the garage, have some beers, sit in the house, have beers, go out for the fish fries like we talked about. We had a good little trio there, but it wasn't just Franky that you would always be hanging out with. And Anthony was on the first two shows, and we talked about old New Year's Eve parties and having those garage parties. I just looked the other day on a Snapchat memory, and I saw this big garage party. I think it might have been New Year's Eve. And the funny thing was about this was that I see all these people, like just people from the past. So Anthony's friends, like Jake Fitzgerald and his like cousin, like some old girls from the past, just like it's a packed garage. And here's John walking through the crowd, walking towards us. So you've been part of those garage parties in the past that have
Yeah.
not really included Franky. It's been more me and Anthony in our crews.
Well, I do know that at one point, I partied with you and your friends a lot, and I'm a 50-year-old man, so there's a little bit of an age gap. I partied with your friends when they were high school. I mean, water and cookies and stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
definitely when you're in college and you would bring over the crew and the soccer crew and people. And then the next step was Franky went and your family had went to a family party for one of your cousins in the city. And it was a nice Polish wedding.
Yes.
And I was kind of home alone, but Anthony didn't go to this wedding. He was having a little get together. So I strolled over to 2303 and I decided, hey, I'm going to join this party now. Now they're even younger than your crew, So we're partying in the garage and we're doing shots, and I'm by far 20 plus years older than anyone in there.
Yes, yeah.
Garage door opens. Here's Frank and Gina. What are you doing here? I'm like, well, I didn't have anything to do, so 2303 was having a party. I decided to come over, make sure nobody got in trouble. And Franky pulls out a bottle of homemade Polish schnapps that were on the table at the wedding. We killed it right there, 2 in the morning. Franky had his tie all ripped off already, shirt unbuttoned.
Yep.
So skip ahead a little bit, 2303. About 6-7 years ago, Wingfest.
Oh,
your mom started Wingfest after an unsuccessful rib fest in the neighborhood that was spoiled by me and Jim. Didn't do a very good job cooking the ribs.
And just to paint the picture of what that is, it was basically all the neighbors got together. There was 1,000 wings being cooked on grills, all different sauces. It was a huge cook-off, but it was a big party by the end of the night. So that's what we're referring to with Wing Fest in the neighborhood.
Yep, and that was my night. The first time I got to kind of party with Dominic. He asked me if I would be willing to sneak out and get him and his crew some rum punch that Wendy had brought over in a big old orange igloo container. And that didn't go over too well either because they overindulged a little bit there. So I went through the first 3 of you, And I've yet to party with Gianna and her friends, but I've always told your mom that that's my goal to complete the whole family. That so Gianna will probably be having many parties this summer, I would imagine, after she gets out of high
Oh
school.
yeah,
And
graduated.
we'll have to hit over to 2303 just to kind of be bouncers, chaperones, whatever.
And stir that up. Yeah, that's
Stir
like
that up. Yeah.
you're like Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones, just drinking with all the scripts, because obviously Frankie and Gina, those were knocked off, and then it was myself, Anthony, Dominic, and then Gianna in the future. I think once you hit Gianna, you'll probably just evolve into something beyond that. But that'll complete not the trifecta, but whatever the word is for six or whatever.
Well, and then you gave me hope for my later years with Mila. I can that few years down the road there,
Yeah, a couple of years. We're gonna I'm gonna wait a little bit until she grows
it'll
up
be
a
a
little
little
bit.
bit, but hopefully I'm good and retired by then. Me and Frankie are out playing, shuffleboard somewhere or bingo. We can stop by Mila's place and have a couple of cold ones on the way home.
That would be in the future's future tale there. But so John, obviously, through this podcast, we're like giving you little snippets of us hanging out and stuff over time. And we ended up having such a bond that in my wedding, I asked John to be a groomsman, which was super cool. And I had a handful of guys that were close or were close in the past with me. John obviously was one of them, and we actually were at the bar one time at the place we go to pretty often, Anthony's, and you had a story that you told one of the bartenders, and I think you said, I might have known the bartender or something along those lines, but you told her a good story. I mean, at least half of it was true, though.
Yeah, well, the half that was true was that I was definitely a groomsman in your wedding, and I definitely appreciate that. It was a great experience, and thank you. I would, I appreciate that. That was a great opportunity. It just so happens to be that I was married in 1998, and you were born in 1991.
Yes.
So the math of the story totally makes sense when. Not really knowing that you knew the bartender, she kind of asked me while I was up getting drinks, "How do you know Nick?" I said, "Well, Nick is my really good buddy. He has asked me to stand up in his wedding as a groomsman." "Oh, that's awesome." I go, "No, that's not awesome. The more awesome part is that when Nick was 7, he was the ring bearer in my wedding." And the girl about freaked out. She'd never heard of anything like that. And apparently I had just enough, bush lattes in me that the story seemed completely seamless, completely believable, because it came off like, holy cow. And the math makes sense. If I would have known you, you could have done that, for me, and that would have been unbelievably awesome. But it makes for a good story.
Yeah, I think that girl at the time, and obviously I knew her from before, but mine was blown. Because when in the world would you ever hear of that sort of situation, ever. So
Yeah.
that was a good one in itself. And I do like how you noted that you had enough, liquid in you to spit that out, because it flowed out so smoothly that, I think whoever heard it probably believed it as well, that was sitting around that at the time.
Yeah. I think another great aspect to that same time period was, it just so happened to be that when you when you asked us all to be groomsmen and your best man, you gave us a nice little pin to wear. And it just so happened that summer of your engagement, I was taking my family on a 9-state vacation out west.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado, the Dakotas, Kansas, Minnesota, Iowa, many states out that way.
Yeah.
And I took that pin with me, and I took pictures of it on Pikes Peak, when I was in Colorado, Mount Rushmore, everywhere I would go. Yep. I would take that picture, and I'd have that pin on, and I'd let you know that, hey, this pin is now in Minnesota. The pin is now in North Dakota. So that was pretty cool.
It was just seeing the world at the time. And
it's a different perspective when you're in your 20s. You're in a lot of weddings.
Yeah,
You have a lot of friends. Everybody gets married. You're asked to stand up in a lot of weddings. But later in life, I hadn't been in a wedding in, geez, I don't even know how long, 20 years up to that point.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was really cool. I mean, there was no doubt that I was honored to be in your wedding, but it was kind of shocking that you'd ask somebody as old as me to be in the wedding because, it just didn't kind of fit, but I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
It fit for me. It fit for me completely at the time, but I think it was even for some of the other groomsmen that knew you, but maybe didn't know you like great. Were like probably thinking, well, really, really like John. Oh, that's interesting there. But it was a no brainer for me. And even though the whole situation didn't work out at the end of the day, still always will remember you and appreciate you being a groomsman. Anthony, Anthony just had a wedding. Were you disappointed you weren't a groomsman in his or
Well,
no?
When Maddie pulled up in front of our house and gave me the save the date thing, I said, Maddie, that's my birthday. She said, what? I said, actually, you're getting married on my 50th birthday. So ironically, I told her, at least I know where I'm getting my birthday cake. Irony is I didn't have any cake.
No.
But
you had dinner, I think.
I had dinner, and I made the most of the day. The wedding was beautiful. You guys didn't mention, that in the neighborhood here, when that limo didn't show up, as he mentioned, that we all had to come together. Franky rode with us to the wedding. I mean, everybody had to be, hey, if you've got a place in your car, somebody's going with you because we need rides to the wedding, and we got to be there right away. So that was kind of chaos to get there, but it seemed to me as soon as we got into the church, everything simmered down. Beautiful ceremony, beautiful church, beautiful things you remember about weddings. To me at least, is beautiful readings, beautiful vows, beautiful songs. That you guys always seem to find people that can sing songs so well at some of these functions, and that was very well. What always gets me is that huge break between the wedding and the reception.
Oh yeah.
You would think I would learn after 50 years that I should take a nap or lay low, but no, we went to the bar across the street from the reception for the entire time with Kelly and my family, while Martin and you guys were there getting things ready for the reception.
Yeah.
And once the bartenders there found out it was my 50th birthday, shots start flowing, free beers start flowing. Everybody wants to buy you a drink, blah, blah, blah. And there you go.
They did say at Anthony's wedding, as soon as they knew it was your birthday, that drinks were around the house. That was my understanding. Because I didn't pay for any drinks that day. And Anthony didn't either. I think that's why he kept drinking all that Jack, which resulted in his downfall a little bit there. But yeah, in between the in that in between period on a wedding, I feel like that's what most people do, and sometimes it catches up to you. But it was cool to have your 50th and Anthony's wedding all on the same day. It was also Caitlin's birthday. Who was it was fun all around. So I wanted to make sure because you and I talk about, obviously, coaching and from my perspective, we talk about your daughter Ava playing softball, Jack playing baseball, talk about different activities. But the one thing we have in common here, just a little bit, and it's obviously very different because you're a parent of a high school student where I oversee a bunch of high schoolers, and that's a dynamic in itself at the end of the day, because I think when it comes to sports and then high school in general, everything seems black and white when it comes to having a student athlete in high school, or just having a high schooler in general, when in reality all of the things that surround that are way more complex than people talk about. Like I know for me, I run a full high school program, so 3 levels: varsity, JV1, JV2 over at the high school there, soccer. And a lot of people think that I just show up, coach the games, run the practices, and go home. When in reality, there's like discipline stuff to worry about. There's academic stuff. There's a bunch of personal stuff with kids. You got kids bickering and going at each other. There's differences in attitudes, differences in personalities. There's like a million things that go into overseeing a high school player and program. And you having a high school student, high school softball player, but also just your daughter. Talk about raising a high schooler, because it's a bit more complex than people think that have not raised somebody in high school.
Absolutely. And I think, having been a high schooler, like we both are, that it changes so fast now that I feel that, I went to high school in the 80s. It was a different time, before the internet, before cell phones. I feel it was very easy on my parents. Academics were just, weren't as critical as they are now. Sports, you played high school sports. Yeah. People were just starting to get club sports. So if you knew somebody on a travel team in the 80s, they were big time, and they were playing, and especially in the Midwest, if they were playing and they were playing year round, we really didn't even, in the Quad Cities where I grew up, they didn't really even have facilities like they do here for indoor training all year long. So currently, if you're talking about Ava academics, that to me is what she's striving for. Mm-hmm. Academics is going to get her into the college that she needs to move forward in life. Sports is what she wants to do. So I support her. Sports, if you want to be good, if you want to be great, if you want to be excellent, sports is a year-round thing.
Yep.
So you're in a club sport, you play high school sports, you're in a club sport, back and forth, back and forth. Right now, this weekend coming up, she's got a 77 genuine here on her team here. Genuine Rain, they have 77 colleges coming to their collegiate Sunday showcase, where they're gonna, all the girls that are 16U or older are going to do a showcase. Then they're going to have a big dinner for these college coaches, and then afterwards they're going to have a showcase for our 14U girls. So it's big time. They've been training for this for 2 months, and they've been training 4 days a week plus her regular lessons. So having, a high school student, Ava's going to be 16. She's driving with a permit now. She has to get her hours in. So my point is that there could be 15 days in a week and she'd have something going on.
Yeah.
And they're full, and society makes it full. There's always something going on. There's always practice. There's always something to do with school. There's always games. There's always wanting to be with your friends to fill in that time. Social life becomes a little less than normal. Much like you, when I met you, socialized a lot with the people you were an athlete with, because that's just what you were around. That's what happens now. You kind of lose friends in high school that if you're not similar, if you're not academically similar, or if sports, I suppose, if somebody was
have that in common,
and whatever they did, I applaud everyone that does anything. It doesn't have to be a sport. It can be, chess team. It can be band. It can be cheerleading, which is a sport, but it's they cheer for other sports too. So there's a lot of things. There's so much more going on. There's so many more activities. You get, and I get an email every day from the high school when they're in session that tells about what's going on, what they've achieved, and what they could be doing. Yeah. And even since you were at Plainfield South, there's so many more clubs and activities and sports and things to do that it's just kind of overwhelming compared to how it was years ago. So yeah, it's a handful. You have to keep really good track of what's going on with your kid, because it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, and it's I mean, you mentioned some good things, and within that, I know you mentioned the academic piece, which a lot of people, who want their kids to play sports one day think that that's going to carry them into college. And when in reality, the percent of athletes who get carried by sports in college is extremely, extremely small. So the academic piece of that is massive, because that's going to get your foot into the door. Once your foot's into the door somewhere one day, then you may have that opportunity to also play sports there. But you got to have that academic piece. Also, just like being that busy in high school, I think is a great thing at the end of the day, because you see often like the kids getting in trouble, or the kids that maybe are a bit behind later in life, I think didn't really have that responsibility of being in a sport and having to be committed to something and having to show up every day and having to have their gear ready and compete against people on a daily basis and be in shape and all that stuff. I think that goes a long way at the end of the day to developing as a person. I think you see a lot of people that are successful that are former athletes, and you don't have to be a former athlete, obviously, to be successful, but a lot of what you develop through high school, through time, I think helps shape you later in life, just as a person, in your job, with your family, things like that. So I think it starts in high school. I truly think it does start in high school.
Yeah. And I'd have to say, like in your situation there, I, there's some things that with travel sports, New Year's Eve, Ava's coach, I got to applaud Ken, and Jack's coach, Ruben. These guys are on the internet. These tournaments for baseball and softball open up at 2 a.m. New Year's Day in California. And when you want to start registering for these tournaments, so I applaud all coaches for doing what they're doing, because nobody probably told them they had to coach. They probably wanted to coach. And I know, like you had one of your goals and to come full circle and give back to South and coach, and you have certain goals of what you want to see happen with the soccer team there, and I applaud that. But my point is that what coaches go through behind the scenes that nobody knows about that's a handful in itself. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, at the end, like I mentioned before, at the end of the day, it's not just laying out the cones or setting up bases or whatever sport it is, and then coaching. It's a lot more that goes into it. But big time, big time for your household. Obviously, big for me as well. And I know we have kind of that in common, just talking about sports and the demands of it. On the last podcast, just to finish off the stream here, last podcast, we talked about like New Year's goals. I somewhat joked around and said I wanted to grow to like 6'2", and it hasn't been helping going to the gym with that just yet. Haven't been growing, but other things I talked about obviously is my moving situation, things like that, and making sure Mila comes first with everything and continuing to learn as a dad. You and I have had conversation like that before. So there's a lot of goals for me, 2023, that I can rant about, but I'd rather not, I'd rather just kind of show things. But what about for you? Is there anything that stands out to cap off the podcast for you, for the household? Do you got a list of things? Maybe it's one thing that stands out for you personally, John.
Well, I roll the year over just hoping that I can maintain my health. By turning 50 here last October, I saw a lot of doctors this past year to get, checkups, had a clean bill of health, had nice physicals, had all my tests come back positive. So I wanted to go into this year and just stay healthy. Stay healthy by just doing the right things, eating a good diet, exercise as much as I can. And like I said at the start, when you're 50, it's a little different to find the time, but also a lot of things are just excuses. So I want to continue on and just not make excuses going into 2023 and be positive, not have excuses, and just get it done. If I don't want to do it because it's a little cold, I'll just wear another layer and go get it done. No excuses.
I like it. Easiest thing in the world is to make an excuse of why you can't get something done, why you're not where you want to be, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that goes and says a lot right there. And with the health thing too, not to go on any sort of rant, but to end things off, I think that is something taken for granted at times, because health can change in the matter of a month and change your whole world. At times we see it, unfortunately, too often with, someone's health that goes south. But I think trying to be on top of your health really helps that sort of spontaneous thing, be less likely at the end of the day. So I'm with you right there. But stick to the script, episode 3. John, thanks for coming on here. I said to you like last week, we should have recorded it when we were sitting on the couch, just bullshitting about whatever. But thanks for coming on, man.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, see ya.